So Pranjal, the name means honest, sincere, simple, straightforward, pure, integrity, humility, clarity of thought. So when I actually looked up your name, this is what came up. And everything, all these qualities actually resonate with you. So I have seen most of the qualities in you because I've known you for like since you were 4.5, 5 years old. So clarity of thought and grit, definitely from childhood, I have seen. And this is what I can say is the little one who you were actually told me that you want to become a doctor. You've told everybody, and then you have arrived at it. So saying it and doing it are two different things. So you are the person who said it and did it. So congratulations, Pranjal.
Thank you.
So I have a lot of questions like any confused Desi mom. We've been the first generation to come here, and you are the first generation kids. So we have been, you guys were our guinea pigs or experimental rats, I call it. You are the
Mhm.
first kid, so we have tried many, many things on you. Everything was your first. We panicked. We were crying when we were leaving you at your preschool, elementary school, and then middle school. We were really like scared that you're getting into the big world, and then we come arrive at the high school, and that's a totally different ball game over here. We panicked. We were really scared that you should not get into bad stuff. And then college, that was like 11th and 12th grade were crazy. So we used to call each other moms and what are you doing? Where did you apply? What are they uh, kind of classes you are signing up, APs and everything. So this is from a mom's perspective. Now we want to know your perspective. Now you're almost a 25-year-old young woman. So you want to know a lot of stuff. So I hope you're up to it with all these questions.
I'm up for it. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the basic question of what do you contribute like at 5, at 4? Why did you say that you want to become a doctor? Why did you even say, and then what led you to say that?
Yeah. Honestly, I think at such a young age, so much of what we want to become is either what we've seen or what we've been told. My grandpa and my grandma, my maternal grandma and my paternal grandpa, both of them wanted one of their kids to be a doctor. And obviously, my dad's not a doctor, my mom's not a doctor, none of their siblings are doctors. And so just someone telling me that, I was like, oh, I'm going to be the one that becomes the doctor. You know, Nani wants a doctor, Baba wants a doctor, I'll be the doctor. And so I think at the age of 4 or 5, it was, a very premature thought on just this will make them happy. So I'll do it.
So that's how it started. So,
Yeah.
but do you have like a defining moment in your life that you knew you wanted to be a doctor at a little later stage of life when you were maybe like a 10-year-old? Did the thought change into like what will it entail? Like we will have to talk about a 5-year-old Pranjal, a 10-year-old will progress in few years increments
Yeah.
where you still held on to the thought and you didn't give up. So what about a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old you? Like,
Yeah. So let's see. In 10-year-old, I was I think in fourth or fifth grade. I think at that point I was still telling people that I want to be a doctor. A huge part of that was still, my grandparents, because I think a 10-year-old like truly does not know what a 10-year-old wants in the world. But then another big part of that, and I don't think this was as a 10-year-old I was thinking of this, but looking back at my life, a lot of my reason why for becoming a doctor happened when my brother was born. And he was born when I was around 7.5 or 8, and he had a lot of medical complications. My mom's delivery was complicated. He was a premature baby. And I think as a 10-year-old, we were going to a lot of the picnics that his neonatal ICU would have year by year. And so I was seeing a lot of families come at these picnics and be really grateful be really just be treating these doctors, these healthcare providers as their own family. And I think as a 10-year-old coming to those picnics and sort of being able to both witness the interactions my parents had with my brother's doctors, but then to also be an observer for just all families together. I think it started like twirling the worlds in my brain that this is some way that you can make a real impact. And because I was seeing it from the other side.
So do you think that we kind of like burden you sometimes, the parents, that we have this ideology of our kids should be doctors or engineers because that's what we are taught in India, that's our like literally our upbringing is like, do you think that kind of impacts you that by saying something and planting the seed in a brain of a child early on will actually like steer them towards it, that you want to do it, and then later there are so many things which come in life, as you said that I know your brother, your mom, I was there when like they
Yeah.
have to go through all that. So it is scary for like a 7 or 8 year old or a 10-year-old child. It is a scary moment when you see your sibling going through all this neonatal care. Sometimes it actually scares you too. So good, like, do you think this just impacted you into divergent into more like how did it like impact you?
Yeah. Well, answering your first question, right, about like the engineer, doctor,
Yeah.
the seeds, I think as quote unquote second generations, I don't know. Someone who like moved here both as a child and then moved back to the United States in 12th grade, I feel like I'm the 1.5 generation. I think we inherently put a lot of so my generation puts a lot of pressure on ourselves that we need to, our parents have given up so much. You guys live away from your parents, your friend circle, the community that you knew, so that in some way or form your kids can have a better life. And so I think there's a lot of internal pressure that my generation puts on ourselves that we need to somehow validate sort of the sacrifices that our parents have made. But I don't think that is a motivator strong enough for someone to go through medical school and residency. I can't really speak a lot about the engineering side of things, but from the medical side of things, I feel like it is just too long of a process for that to be your singular reason why. And so I think sure that might have like started some of the thinking process, but I don't think that can be your only reason.
That's good. That's good to know that because we always feel that we are putting so much pressure on our kids, and then
Yeah.
not put so much pressure. There's so many things in life that they can do. There are not only just two ways to go about stuff. So
Yeah.
at the bottom, it's actually the child's inclination to what they want to do.
And I think that's like how children are happiest. I remember when I was in high school, I decided I don't want to be a doctor. In high school, I was like, there are so many other things in the world that I can be. I can be an archaeologist, I can be a paleontologist, I can be a social worker. They were all like sort of human related. Archaeology, I was interested in like historical civilizations and how civilizations came and went away. With paleontology, I was interested in the sort of the evolution of humans. And social work, was directly once again human care. And I think when I was interested in each one of those, my parents did a phenomenal job at actually giving me a point person in that field to talk to. You know, and being able to ask them my questions, because I think no matter what profession, as a high schooler, it is so incredibly hard for a student to know what that career would look like 20, 30, 40 years into the future.
Very true. So, do you think that the kids should not have to be pressured into making a decision in 11th and 12th grade that what they have to choose, that they have to choose a certain subject when they're going to college, or they should be a little open about when can they, like, they should be able to choose at a later stage of life. So, do you think things change?
I do think things change. I think, an 11th grader and 12th grader can only make the choice as good as what they know in that moment, but you go through college, you get exposed to so many more people. I think especially coming from the Bay Area, our the interactions we have are very engineers or doctors or tech, we don't really even interact with adults outside of that field. And so college is like the first time a lot of us students are interacting with other kids where their parents are dance teachers and their parents, work in the church and their parents are nurses and just these professions that we have not interacted with. And so I do think things change. I think an 11th and 12th grader cannot make um, I think as an 11th and 12th grader, you feel like you know everything, because at that point you feel like you're the adult and you know everything. And so you make a decision based off all the information you have up till then. But I don't think it's very common for that decision to still be your decision 5, 7 years down the lane when you've added more information to your toolbox.
So we can retract a little because you've studied here and also in India. So what are the differences you see?
I think pros and cons, right? I think the Indian education system. So I did seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, and 11th grade in India. And I think the Indian education system is a lot more rigorous. Anything that I was learning in like AP biology, AP physics when I came back in 12th grade, I had already learned in like my regular physics and biology class in 10th grade. And so I think the Indian education system is a lot more rigorous. There's a greater breadth, but there's not depth. I don't think the Indian education system, at least, what it was when I was a student there, does a great job of asking students to question. I think overall Indian culture, you're not supposed to really question a lot. And so the Indian education system just sort of has a similar vibe where you learn it, but you don't ask, why does this happen? What if, what if I don't even know, like why can trees, transport water up thousands of meters, but like humans have such a hard time doing that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think the American education system places a greater emphasis on curiosity.
definitely. I think so. I also, because even we went to school in India, so I think that the way we have seen your education or our education is practicality is kind of little missing in there when you actually come to chemistry or physics or
Mhm.
biology. The resources are quite limited if you are in a different kind of school settings. So they don't have enough resources to give you. So we have learned that like when you put two substances together, this is the color it comes. So sometimes you have to just imagine that it just turns into this blue color, this copper sulfate is this color. But here you're actually kind of learn by doing it.
Mhm.
And kids are really encouraged to choose their paths. And we were never given those choices. So we feel that there's two ways. Like we feel that there's so much freedom given to a child here that they can choose so much. And then, do you think when given so many choices, the kids can actually think that far that there's whatever they have chosen, a path, can actually make a living for them, can actually help them in the future. Uh, does a particular subject need to be like, if you want to make an earning out of it, you have to do maybe a master's, a PhD in it to be actually placed into something? I know engineer gets placed in 4 years and they start earning money, and poor doctors, you guys have been, you're still in school and you still have to learn a lot, and then you start at 30. So, in a point, did you ever feel that your friends have just settled already and you're still like in the path? Do you ever have those thoughts?
Absolutely. So I am completing my first year of residency. I have 5 more years of residency left, right? And just like quick story, I moved Gorish, my younger brother, into college last year. He's a freshman. I moved him in. I met parents of like his roommates, and they were like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, like I'm a surgeon. I'm a surgical resident." And they were like, "Oh, very cool." And then I was thinking about it later on, and I was like, 4 years later, when my brother is graduating college and I meet these parents again, they're going to ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" And I will still be a surgical resident, because I'll still be in residency. And a lot of my friends that are in tech, are earning a significantly higher amount than I am, working half the hours that I work and have a lot more flexibility with their schedule. And so I think the what if had I done that is a lingering question that pops up, especially on days that I'm very sleep deprived or after like a 24-hour shift. I'm like, what if I had just done tech? And I think the what ifs will always remain, right? That's the point of what is. I don't think I would have been as happy though. I don't think I would have felt as fulfilled or as gratified as I do or as mentally stimulated as I do. But it's such like a personal thing. But yeah, the question always there.
True. So in through all this, through your high school and through
Yeah.
your college and getting into med school, how have your parents played a part in this, and how did they keep you calm, quiet, or like stress free? Because they also stress because you stress. So how do you like kind of count this is like a symbiosis, right? You comfort them and they comfort you. What are the things? Can you give us an insight of what can we do to actually help you? And
Yeah.
when should we leave you alone?
Yeah, I think something that my parents have done since I was a kid is they've never asked me how a test went. They never cared about my grades. They never cared about like if I got 95% or 75% on a test. Like I have failed math tests before. I have failed science tests before, right? And they never cared. I think to them, the big point was, did I have fun taking the test? Because everything should be fun, including taking the test. And I think ma and pa, my parents were always have always emphasized the fun of education. Like you should have fun while learning it. You should have fun while taking the test. If the test is hard, think of it like as a challenge. It's challenging you. You're learning something as you're taking the test. And I think just having that different perspective actually helped me significantly with tests and like just general stress through high school and college because I knew that like a test was not the end of the world, no matter what I scored. And I think just like letting go of the stress of what will happen actually enabled me to do better because I was spending a lot less energy worrying and I was just spending all of that energy actually studying then. And I think in terms of stress and just like general life stress, um, I think I've been very privileged to have parents that have always had a very open communication space with me where they've always, sort of a backstory. I have multiple tattoos. Are my parents pleased with any of the tattoos? Absolutely not, right? But
Maybe
their
I did this.
their perspective on all of these decisions and stressful moments have been, we're going to be with you. You make whatever decision you think is right for you because the consequences will be yours, the victories will be yours. As parents, we'll support you no matter what the decision is. We'll give you our advice, we'll give you our perspective, our take if you ask for it, but the decision has to be yours. And I think then, no matter what stressful scenario I was presented with, I was able to go to my parents and be like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? But then I could make a decision that truly felt like my own, which may or may not align with what my parents want.
So that's good. We'll keep the part with the tattoos and stuff. So now that we are into like, I want you to tell what was the journey how did you start and where are you at with the, how did you become, how did you come into this journey of being a doctor?
Yeah. I think in college, so I went to WashU in St. Louis, and I was very interested in research. I was very interested in just in patient care and healthcare. Um, I don't know if your camera's turned off because of something. Okay, I'll just continue. Um, um, so I was very interested in healthcare and research even when I came. Do you want me to restart?
Yeah, yeah, you
Okay.
can go ahead. I had like, my dog is barking. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I think in college, when I was actually thinking about, I like sort of what we said earlier, I was like, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. And now I'm in college and I've said, I want to be a doctor. But what does being a doctor look like? And so college was really a part when I explored that. I did a lot of research in college because I knew I was interested in academia. I was interested in science. I was interested in the actual whys and hows. And so I did a lot of bench research in college. I studied a disease, a disease that a lot of premature babies get, actually, sort of tying back into my experience and my family's experience with my brother. And I did a lot of volunteering at a hospital, and I found that no matter how busy of a day it is, I gained so much joy from being able to put a smile on someone else's face. Like just the fact that I can do that gave me so much joy. And that sort of, to me, really solidified the decision that I think medical school is what I want to go into so that I can continue sort of putting a smile on people's faces, but also continue doing research. When I went into medical school, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to be a kids doctor. I wanted to help kids, their parents. And I think pediatricians are some of the best people in the planet. But very quickly, once I got into medical school, I realized that it's as amazing as a field of that is, I need to be doing something with my hands. I've always been very crafty. I like working with my hands, and I came into medical school and I was like, I need to be using my hands like in a physical way, and I need to feel like I'm making a physical difference. To me, I think there are people that are really good with delayed gratification. A patient comes in with blood pressure, with hypertension. I give you a medication. We follow up every 4 weeks. Slowly, your blood pressure gets resolved. That's delayed gratification. I found out I'm someone who likes instant gratification, which is a sort of paradox because all of medicine is a delayed gratification. Residency is so long. But I was like, I need someone, like, if you come to me with cancer, I need to feel like I can take the cancer out and do something right in that moment, that instant gratification. And so that really got me thinking that I need to go into something surgery related. But while doing surgery, I didn't want to give up those like long-term patient relationships that I feel are harder to make when you're in just general outpatient surgery. And so, sort of combining all of these different interests, combining research, combining long-term patient care, combining surgery, and just exploring led me to urology. And that's sort of how I found my home in urology. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
That's really interesting because we have seen you. You wanted to the as soon as you got into medical school, we keep asking you, what do you want to become?
Yeah,
And then you told us, I want to become a plastic surgeon. I said,
yeah, that
wow,
happened.
that plays really well. That's what we thought. And then I think you wanted to become a surgeon, but urology, before that, you had a different plan, like one before that. And then you landed up into urology. And then,
Yeah.
oh, we have the big question. Urology, according to us, we always feel that it is such a male dominated
Mhm.
uh, field. And then
Mhm.
you being a woman, like basically thinking about like a male gynecologist,
Mhm.
most of the women prefer to be seen by a women gynecologist. Not anymore, but this is just a notion, I know. We are coming beyond that now. So, what do you think a person like somebody seeing this uh, video, they would be thinking that, oh, what is the best choice for me? What are the different options I have? So can you elaborate a little for a med student who wants to actually explore different departments? Is it like, how do you guys arrive at it? By doing
Yeah.
rounds, or like, how do you actually get fixated that this is it?
Yeah,
That
that's
click.
a great question. Yeah. Well, to answer your first part, so, I know that there's like a general notion that like female patients are more comfortable. I've heard anecdotally as well with female gynecologists. And I think to some extent I can understand why as a female myself. I think the thing with urology though, even though, prostates and penises are very and testicles are male GU organs, we also treat the kidney and the bladder, which are organs that all genders have, which sort of equates, we have female patients, we have male patients, we have pediatric urology is an entire field is as well. And so our variety of patients really span the spectrum of all ages and all genders. But in terms of how does a medical student choose, what they want to do for the rest of their life, I think that is one of the hardest choices that a medical student has to make because there is so much. I think exposure, just everyone loves to tell you why they went into a particular field. So ask. I think just talk to people, ask your seniors, ask junior residents, ask senior residents, ask attendings, people at each level, and really understand what drove people to that field. I think different fields also have a different sort of personality that goes into them. And so not to say that you should find a group of people that you vibe with best, but I do think that plays a huge role because medicine is actually a really tiny field. And so, if you really like the dermatologists, those will be colleagues that you will interact with for the rest of your life. If you like the emergency medicine doctors, those will be the colleagues that you interact with for the rest of your life. And so I think it's just as much exploration as you can do. And a lot of medical schools do a really good job of already priming some of those conversations. Your last 2 years are usually clinical years when you're actively in the hospital. So you get a lot of exposure directly, but you also have to be a little proactive and just reach out and make your own connections.
That sounds good. So I know we have these notions which are preconceived and collective consciousness that, oh, you're this, you're supposed to do this, and like, because this is, if you're a first and if you've be like, if your parents were doctors over here, they would know like what this entails to. Some of us, our kids are the first ones going into college. All we will know is med school and doctors and which year she is or which surgery she's going to. And then slowly, once you get into it, you tell us more about all this stuff. So, can you share a bit about your journey and how you like Johns Hopkins, and what is the best thing about this college? Because there are so many kids who are so aspirational that they want to be in here, and whatever papers are published, and if it says that this has been published in Johns Hopkins, we say that this must be true. Like, because the best minds are there. So the cream of the crop is there. So what would you want to say about your college? What is your journey?
Yeah, so I went to medical school at Johns Hopkins and I'm in residency at the Brady, which is the urology department at Johns Hopkins. Um, I think I think there are various pros, various benefits to Johns Hopkins. I think personally, the one that I have felt strongest has been the resources that it has because it is a school with so much reputation, and such a strong reputation, sort of like you alluded to there, and a strong emphasis on research. There is so, no matter what your research interests are, there is someone at Hopkins who aligns with that. There is someone willing to be your mentor. There's someone willing to give you funds. There's some grant that is willing to sponsor your research. And I think just having all of those resources makes it so much easier. Because it's sort of just it's making the journey of research easier, literally.
Oh, so it's more of a research college. So whoever is in that direction should be applying for it, just not for the name of Johns Hopkins, right? So
Yeah,
that's
I think Hopkins has a very strong emphasis on research. And I think, whether or not research is something that you want to do with your life, I think it is a school that if you're interested in, you should apply to because personally for me, research was something really big. And so that's where I used resources. But I have friends that got masters in public health because that's what they're interested in, along with their MD. They did an MD and an MPH. And with the Bloomberg School of Public Health there, once again, you've got a lot of resources in supporting that. We have the Carey School of Business to support with your MBA. We have a very strong biomedical engineering department over at the undergrad campus to support with more engineering and innovation. And so I think the university has built itself into this conglomerate where there are resources available and no matter what you want to do. Which is, I think it's one of the biggest perks.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And congratulations that you're in that. We'll be very happy. She's on our speed dial of like if you have any questions, we have a doctor in the house. So, how do you balance your demands of this medical school and your personal passions? Like, how do you segregate both of them?
Um,
How do you do it?
I think it is so important to not lose track of what makes you you. I think it's sort of to preface all of this, medicine is a job. It's not, you have to treat it like a job. And so, even though it takes up such a huge chunk of your physical life and your mental, your emotional capacity, I think you need to find the time to continue doing what makes you you. So, personally, for me, I like anything outdoors. I am happiest when I am under the sun. Um, we don't get a lot of sunshine in the hospital because, operating rooms don't have windows. But I the weekends that I get off, I try to spend at least a day outside. Sometimes I don't have the weekend off. Sometimes I only have Saturday off or I only have Sunday off. Then at least like an hour, 2 hours just outside doing something. Interacting with people outside of medicine, I think is so, so important. Once again, I am very lucky that my partner is not in medicine. He's an engineer. And so first of all, having him as a support system, he takes care of the house for us. He takes care of our cat. He takes care of the groceries, the cooking, the everything. So I'm not even worrying about any of that. And I'm incredibly lucky that I have that. But then that enables me to have more time, even an hour or 2 more hours at the end of my hospital shift to be able to go for a run outside or to be able to, call up a friend or talk to someone outside of medicine and just remind myself that medicine is just a job. There are things outside of medicine I need to do.
We always have this notion like doctors should marry doctors.
Ah,
That way they understand the like perils of this occupation and because you guys are like not available for major parts of your life. I know that when you'll be a practicing doctor, you have to like give dates like for vacation 1 year in advance. Who can plan that, We do
yeah.
that over here. Maybe you'll miss those parent-teacher meetings or those milestones of your children. So that way they say that, like, what would you say to those people who just casually say it, a doctor should marry a doctor? Like, what would you tell them?
I think you actually answered that question. I think you said we say doctors should marry doctors because they have an easier time understanding each other, right? It's for that understanding. I think a doctor can marry a doctor. One of them can be a surgeon, one of them cannot be a surgeon, and they may not have any understanding. At the same time, a doctor can marry an engineer and they can very well understand each other. And so I think the crucial aspect is actually understanding and respect and communication. As an attending, things get a little bit easier. I'm hoping that I can make all PTNs for my kids. As a resident, I know like I put in my vacations a good year in advance, and so it's hard. But then I have a partner who understands that I may not be able to be there for anniversaries or for birthdays and for important days. But it comes down to understanding then and not necessarily what profession the two people are in.
So we'll take this a little further is like, what do you think is missing between you? I would not say exactly your parents, but our generation between a husband and wife, the way we communicate, uh, and the way you guys communicate. I would want to know few pros and few cons because we need to do the learning to it. There's always a learning curve. We can
Yeah.
take some cue points from you. So give me the nitty-gritties of like what should we change in us and what should we learn from you.
That's a hard one. I think, I mean, it's hard for me to generalize to all relations, right? In my relationship that I have with my partner, we have always had this rule that it's us against the world. There's no you or me in this relationship. There's no your problem or my problem. It's our problem. Um, And I think that just reframes some conversations that we have with each other. I think the other thing is we were best friends before we became anything else. And so just being able, like he is my best friend even today, right? And I think having your partner be your best friend, it enables you to have a such like a just I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. But it enables, I think, a more open communication that you can have. You're not thinking about what he will think or how he will react because he's your best friend. And
Yeah.
similarly, he can say anything he wants to me without worrying about that because I'm his best friend. And I think that helps. I think other things we just communication, right? I think communication is the key to everything. Have very open communication and rules that we've set. We never go to bed angry, we never go to bed upset at each other. um and that small things matter. I think, once again, this might be generalizing, but I think in the generation above me, there's less emphasis on small things, like you buy each other big gifts for anniversaries, you buy each other big gifts for birthdays. But I think the random flower on a Tuesday is as beautiful. And, the random I love you in the middle of like a weekday is as special. And I think that's what it keeps the magic alive. And
I can also vouch for this generation is that we kind of generally are nice to each other on each other's birthdays or an anniversary, and the next day everything becomes again the same. And then what do you see that we can actually change? Do you think we were not told by our parents? How do you actually, the way I want to put in is like, you will be moving into the next phase of your life where you'll be married, your partner. So what would you take from your parents' relationship in an older sense that some things should not change and you want to carry forward the same kind of a tradition, or like you want to do the same kind of stuff as your parents and something different, a new thing which you want to add to your generational when you become a partner?
yeah, I think a lot. I mean, it's hard for me to evaluate my parents' relationship with each other. Um, I think the best I can do is evaluate their relationship with me. And I think that sort of parenting relationship, if I can be half the parent that they have been, I'll be incredible. And so, I think sort of what we talked about earlier with like all of those open communications and creating that safe space and both of them really coming together. There was no good cop, bad cop. It was us, all of us in one unit. And I think just being able to create that for my future family is something that I really, really want to try to do. I think the other thing, growing up in the United States, my parents had a huge emphasis on still learning Hindi, on still learning, Ramayana and Mahabharata and learning the different stories of Indian princes and queens and kings and history and being able to pass that culture and that heritage on even while living halfway across the world. And similarly, being able to pass on all the food of India. And I think that's important to me. And I want to be able to pass that on as well because I mean, I'm a very unapologetically proud Indian, holding a US citizenship, but still, I want to be able to tell my children that they can be very proud to be brown, and that's okay. Um, I think things that I would change are, I think across like my parents and their friends' generations is I feel like the emphasis on dating has gone away. And that's possibly because you guys have kids, you guys have houses, you guys have all of these added responsibilities that dating's almost like it's the last thing on your mind. But I think it's so important to keep like the spark alive between like, two partners, two spouses. And at the end
Not
of the
take
day,
everything for granted, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And at the end of the day, like your kids go off to college and your spouse is the person that you have left. And so you can't take them for granted for 18 years to then in the 19th year be like, "Oh, actually, let's get to know each other again." I think that that can never go away. I think even with kids, with houses, with no matter how busy life gets, you need to make time for your spouse and very dedicated, intentional time. It can't just be I come home and I have 10 minutes. It has to be, hey, let's go on a date. Friday evening, babysitter is already scheduled. I have a reservation. Let's go. Let's just you and me. And I think being intentional about that is also important.
Yeah, so the way we've grown up, we always say that we self-flagellate ourselves that, oh, how can we leave kids at home? And then once you're gone too, we are empty nesters all here. Then also we have the same thinking that you guys are away, but we don't want to go on vacation without
Yeah.
you guys. Yeah, I
I
know you guys will be going on vacation by yourself and you'll make your own plans and own memories with your loved ones. So this is the question is the way I want to ask you is I have come across this is how is it like okay or not okay? I don't know. Like, is it if the parents are going through a problem or like an argument or disagreement on the family side, on our side, something, random, something happening in the family, is it okay to unload that emotional crisis or situation onto a child? And how does it burden you guys when
yeah.
we actually download that kind of stuff on you?
I think I mean, I don't think it's okay, right? Like your child, especially if we're talking about a young child, a child who like has a very basic understanding of human emotions. I think as a child, it can be very scary for a parent to unload that on you. And yeah, so I don't think that's okay, but at the same time, I understand that especially when two spouses, like when they don't have anyone else to go to, it almost it's not that it's intentional, it's almost an unintentional unloading onto a child. You're frustrated by the events of a day, and so you yell a little louder at dinner. Um, and I think it is normal that that happens. I think we're all humans, including our parents, and everyone is going to make mistakes. I don't think any parent is the perfect parent. I think that's a false thing. Don't hold yourself up to such a high standard. You know that you're going to make mistakes. I think what happens next is actually more important. Once you've done that, can you go back to your child and say, hey, I yelled at you. That was not okay. I'm sorry I yelled at you. I think being able to apologize to your child and explain to them why it was wrong not only teaches them that, hey, yelling is wrong. I shouldn't do this. But it also teaches them that saying sorry is okay and saying sorry is normal. Um, yeah, so I don't think it's okay to unload, but I also realize that it happens. And then,
You're too good. You're
yeah,
too good.
oh,
You are like letting them off easy. Parents who actually do that. I
I
know
think there's an extent, right? Like if you're hitting your child, I think you've crossed a physical boundary there. You know, if you're berating your child, you're telling them that they're worthless or anything like that, you've crossed a boundary. And so, yeah.
what do
I,
you see? There's two different notions here. Spare the rod, spoil a child is what we've been taught. And then after raising your kids over here, we have realized that that's not the saying which should be. We have to treat you as equals. We have to give you the respect. We have to, as my daughter always says, when I'm actually next to her and if I've raised my voice and loud, she says that I'm right here.
yeah.
Your low voice would have the same impact as your high voice. We just raise the voice to keep the word that our word is heavier, matters more. We look down upon you guys. And like as a parent, I'm actually apologizing to all the kids that if we have done this to you guys over your growing period, we have just unleashed ourselves. I think we were also immature, guys. So we were learning with you. We were just growing up with you guys.
Yeah. And I think, being a parent, a first time parent in a new country, like my mom, you guys, and like, all of her friends, all of you guys, I know you guys had just moved to the US and your kids are like a year, 2 years old, 3 years old. It's your first time that you're living away from home. I think a lot of us first kids grew up as our parents also grew up. Um, yeah. And so I think mistakes were probably made on both sides, but yeah,
Yeah,
human.
we're learning. We are learning with you guys. So now that, what are your hobbies? What med school is really hard. I know that you have an amazing hobby. I
Yeah.
cannot turn my head around how you actually do it, get to it. The 2 or 3 holidays you get, the vacation you get. I'm going to build up this drama around what you do, okay? So you go to that, you do that. So, and you drag people, and if there's nobody, you just do it by yourself. So, how did you even arrive at this point that you want to do it? Why do you do it? Why do you want to accomplish this? How do you do it?
Yeah. So I love hiking. And when I was in medical school, in my second year of medical school, I started this challenge that I'm going to hike the highest point of all 50, 51 if you include DC states in the US. It's been 4 years since I've started that challenge, and I just did my 26th state, which is the state of Texas, about a week ago. Um, in terms of how did I get into it, I think hiking for me, this might be a very naive thing to say, but it's you don't need a lot of resources. All you need are your legs, your shoes, some water. And so it was, as someone like you don't have a lot of money in medical school. It's very hard to join a very expensive gym. Like you just don't have that sort of money. But walking, running, hiking, all of these are very accessible things. You don't need a lot of resources to begin. And then I grew up hiking and camping. My dad loves to hike and camp.
Yeah.
And so, I think a part of that was already inbuilt in me that this is something that you can do.
Mhm.
Um, and then when I began hiking, the first high point that I did was actually New York's. It was Mount Marcy up in the Lake Placid, northern New York, in the northern Adirondack region. And I did that by myself. And, that was the first one I did. It was by myself. And I remember the night before, I was talking to one of my best friends, and I was a little afraid of doing it by myself. It was rated hard on all trails. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And she was like, you know what? Like, it's okay. If you can't do it, you turn around. And I was like, that's fair. I don't need to complete it per se. That's what I said in my head. I was like, obviously, I need to complete it.
Yeah.
But, I
Knowing
started
when to quit is a good thing. Always listen to your gut.
knowing your physical limitations, knowing when to call it, You want to be able to do it another day. You never want to hike so much that you can't hike the next day.
Mhm.
Um, and just, but being able, like, once I did that hike by myself, which was a long hike, I think it built a lot of confidence that I can do this. I can drive 8 hours hike and then drive 8 hours back. And then once that started the challenge, and once that sort of it ignited basically in me that if I get 3 days off, if I have, or 2 days off, Saturday, Sunday, especially living on the East Coast, I need to make the most of it. I can travel down, I can drive 4 hours down, hit four different states, hike all of them, and come back by Sunday evening. I can sleep in my car. I can, use the bathrooms at the rest areas. I can travel with my little stove. Like, there's not a lot I need when you actually think about the things that you need to survive. And I think once you reduce those things down to, oh, wow, this is all that I need, it just, the logistics and everything just makes sense and it becomes easier. Um, in terms of like, why have I continued doing it? I think for me, hiking has become almost meditative. Very recently, like I did a 26-mile hike, which is 9 hours long, and that was just, it was 9 hours of then just walking in the woods,
Mount
right?
Hamilton.
Yeah, Mount Hamilton, which is very as high point. And it's almost meditative. There's nothing there. You have to be very, very aware of your surroundings. Unfortunately, I mean, both just as a hiker, but also uh as a solo female hiker, you have to be a little bit more aware of your surroundings. Um, but you're listening to the sounds around you. You're aware of the wind, you're aware of weather conditions, you're aware of a lot more things that we don't think about on a regular basis. And I think for me, when I get to the very top and I look down and see what I've accomplished, there's two things. There's, a feeling of pride, but there's also this feeling when I look out and at the mountains around me and the city and the valleys, it reminds you of how almost insignificant you are in this world. And that's almost a reassuring feeling because you know that you're a little cosmic dust in this universe, and there was a universe before you, there will be a universe after you. Nothing you can do, nothing you do will damage the entire universe. And it's almost reassuring.
Good. That
Yeah,
humility part which keeps you grounded. The mountains
exactly.
are calling. I know, like those mountains when you are up there, once you get a high out of that. So
Um,
what would you tell the kids who actually are in tense and dire situations like that? They're stressed for the littlest part. Now that saying that I'm stressed is like a fashion. If you say that you're not stressed, if you're happy, then is like, they would say that, oh, you're not driven enough,
yeah,
you're not pursuing something which like there, like you don't want to achieve bigger stuff. Now this is what the kids are bombarded every now and then. And then if they say stressed, and if they say that they're working hard, it means they're actually studying or they're preparing for something. So this is the notion which everybody has. So if somebody is stressed, what would you say? You found your calling, you have your hiking. Maybe the other kids would not be having that kind of part. What would you say that we would actually address the I don't know, I forgot that word, but there are so many things which you can seek to actually subdue those stresses and everything. So what would you say about that why should you avoid it, and what else are there in this world that you can try which will give you that calmness and
yeah,
the numbness they're looking for away from the stress which de-stresses them? Like, what is out there? Because it has
yeah.
to come from your mouth, not us.
Yeah, I think what you were alluding to was like alcohol and drugs,
Mhm.
which are unfortunately very popular in high school, and I don't think they're ever the answer, right? Everyone says that. Um, that's easy to say. I think what's harder to say is what the answer should be then. How do you relieve your stress? Um, I think you have to know what makes you you. And I think that is a hard thing to know. And I think you can have multiple hobbies, right? You can enjoy dancing and swimming and knitting and crocheting and running and reading, and you can have so many things. But you also need to be able to prioritize which one brings you perhaps the most calm. When you only have 10 minutes to do something, how do you decide which one to do? And I think that is just, it's such a personal question. But the way that when I started medical school, my advisor had us all write down on a little post-it note 5 people that we don't want to lose sight of. So mom, dad, Gorish, my partner, some of my friends, and then 5 things that we don't want to lose sight of. And he told us, stick that post-it note above your study table wherever you study so that it's always visible, so that you know that whatever the stress is, whatever the study is, that is not bigger than those 5 people and 5 things. And I think that analogy has been explained to me in various ways, and whatever way sticks, right? I think the other way that I've heard about it is that you have your life is a juggle. You're just juggling all these balls. You have some glass balls and you have some plastic balls. If you drop a plastic ball on the floor, it won't shatter. It'll bounce back up. You'll be able to pick it. It's fine. But if you drop a glass ball on the floor, it shatters. You can't fix it. And you need to be able to figure out what in your life is a glass ball and what is a plastic ball. The people, the relationships in your life are always glass balls. Your work, whatever professional, that is always a plastic ball. You can always bounce back from a bad test, from, a bad project, anything bad that happens in your academic career, because those are plastic balls. The things that you can't bounce back from are the relationships you have with people. Once you burn bridges, those bridges are burned. And so I think if you spend less time stressing about work and spend more time with all of that energy with the people you love, I think it de-stresses you and it reminds you of what's important.
Very true. The way we have been taught by our elders are through muhavres,
Yeah.
We used to slide these muhavres into our sayings, into our conversations and their conversations every day. Is like exactly like the burn the bridges. Don't stretch the string too much that the elasticity or it just breaks and then you can't put it together again. So we are into the generation where like absolutely the way say if something breaks, you throw it and you buy a new one. You don't want to repair the old one because the first thing is you don't know how to do it. So as a child, like what are the five basic skills that you think you should know? Like every if it's a boy, it's
Yeah.
a girl. Five
Yeah.
basic skills to
Yeah.
survive. Like
Yeah.
what are they?
Cooking, number one. I think you need to know how to cook, how to feed yourself. You need to know how to be an adult. That it's a very broad concept, but it boils down to some very simple things. Cooking is part of that, but shopping for cooking, all of that's related. Um, I think it's hard for me to say five, like point five
Point
out. I
five out, yeah.
think, I
Cooking,
think
yeah.
it's, being an adult is so, so important. And that comes with knowing how to be financially independent, knowing what taxes are, what does income mean, knowing just basic general financial stuff, because that's how you prepare for the future. So that knowing how to take care of yourself in the day-to-day stuff. And so short-term things, cooking, cleaning, laundry, those are all short-term. And then the medium-term things, you have to buy toilet paper before you're on the last roll. That is something that I learned the hard way. But those are medium-term
Planning.
things.
A part is
Exactly.
planning.
How do
Yeah.
you plan?
Planning.
And not only plan for the next day, but plan for like a week ahead, 2 weeks ahead. I think those are like the biggest,
Adulting. Basically adulting.
yeah,
Yeah.
adulting.
Yeah. And like one thing which comes to my mind is like, I think I should have taught my kids how to change a tire.
My dad did not teach me how to drive a car until I could change the tire.
That's amazing. See, this is what there's so
Yeah.
many things, even though we have literally watched you grow up and then we were all together. There's
Yeah.
so many things we were not taught. So the first time my child was already driving, I take them to the gas station and I said, this is what you need to learn. I said, oh, we'll sit in the car. You can fuel up. They said, no, you have to know. I don't want you to fill diesel instead of petrol.
Mhm.
So this is the basic stuff, but yes, I didn't teach my kid how to change a tire. So they always think that they can actually YouTube it and do it there. But what if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and then
Yeah.
there's no internet? So how
And
do
that
you
is,
do that?
yeah, that has happened. I've been on a hiking trail where not me, but like another person's car on the trailhead needed to get a jump start. And there's
Absolutely.
no service, there's no internet connection. We can't YouTube how to jumpstart. But as part of like teaching me how to drive, my dad was, you need to know how to change a tire and you need to know how to jumpstart a car because those are the two emergencies that can happen. And I can't teach you how to drive a dangerous vehicle without teaching you how to get out of emergent situations.
Yeah.
And so, because I had the jumpstart cables, and between the two of us, we had just enough to figure out how to jumpstart. We got his car started up again.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely. That's what
yeah,
a lot of the kids think that, oh, when the time comes, we'll learn it. So these are the things which you don't learn on spot. You have to actually know, so that it's like a life skill, like swimming and cycling and like biking. It's just like a muscle memory. Like
and, you
you
know,
teach yeah, kids to do that, I feel.
my experience, when you get stranded in the middle of a road at 10 p.m. because you have a blown tire and you have to call AAA,
Yeah,
you'll learn. The
you
next
learn,
time, learn.
learn.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you
Life
learn.
doesn't kind of throw the same stuff at you. It that's why we call it googly, like when it's
Yeah.
it gives you different things, different
Yeah.
challenges at different times. So thank you so much, Pranjal, for giving us so much information. I do have like just few more questions. We'll go
Yeah.
through this, and it's what advice would you give a young women who are aspiring to become doctors or they have very ambitious goals? Like, what would you tell them?
I would say be yourself.
Mhm.
I would say take up all the space that you deserve to take up in the world. Um, and do not let anyone else tell you how you should be, how you should behave, or what space you deserve in the world. You deserve everything that you want.
That's good. And two things is the people who know you too well. What is
Yeah.
that you want to tell them that they think that they know you in and out, but this is something they don't know about you?
Uh, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. I don't know. I think I think this is probably a general answer and an answer that probably applies to everyone. But I think we can't really know anyone without walking in their shoes, really, right? And so I can look at it like one of my engineer best friends' life and be like, oh my God, their life looks amazing, so nice. And they can look at my life and be like, oh my God, she gets to do so many cool surgeries. That's so exciting. But without really being walking a mile in the other person's shoes, you just can't know what their life is about and what their individual struggles are about.
That's absolutely true. Do you think we are very our generation, I'm telling you, you guys are not like we are very, do you think we guys are very judgmental and then we are I think that I would say about myself that we were judgmental, we are hypocrites, and then we have assumptions, we read between the lines, we know this, that we are doing this, and it takes a great deal to actually accept that we are like this. Um, what would you say to the people who have all these qualities? Like, what would you want them to actually change and for
Well, I think
once? Yeah,
yeah, I think part of that is just you're thinking too hard. It's like your brain's always thinking. That's why That's why people are reading between the lines because you're thinking in between the lines. You're always thinking. And I think to those, like, just take a breath, calm down, right? Life's too short to think too much. If someone feels some way about you, this has been my sort of motto in life is that you 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 don't have a lot of ATP. ATP is like how our cell generates energy. It's the equivalent of like gas for a car is ATP for our cells. And you can't waste your ATP on things that don't matter. You have a finite amount of ATP. You have a finite amount of days in your life. Everyone who is born dies. I will die. I only have so many hours and so many minutes in my life. And so if someone wants to say something to me, they will say it. I don't need to worry about what they're thinking. If someone feels a certain way about me, they'll make it known if they want to make it known. I don't need to worry about that because that's just wasting my minutes.
Awesome. I like the ATP part.
Yeah.
Next time somebody does this, I'll say like I'm not wasting my ATP on you. This
There you go.
I have an aha moment. So what do you think South Asians need to concentrate more from a doctor's biological human perspective that you're observing that our South Asians need to change this kind? Like what do you want them to address? Which is
Like in
very important.
lifestyle or
Yeah, lifestyle, the way they eat, the
yeah.
way they exercise.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think a very big thing, especially in the generation above me, is healthcare was obviously practiced very differently in India than it is in the United States. And so there's this very big thing that, oh, our parents didn't do this. Why do we need to do it? Whether that be when we tell you that something like at the age somewhere between 45 to 55, you need to start getting colonoscopy screening. That's not a thing in India. And so a lot of South Asians here are like, why do we need to do it? It doesn't happen in India. Similarly, when we start screening you for diabetes and cholesterol and hypertension, a lot of South Asians are like, oh, everyone in my family has this. Who cares? I'll just take some medications. But all of these things, have a significant impact on your life and on the life of everyone around you. Because, as morbid as what I'm going to say might be, that when you die, you are gone. The people that are left behind are all the people that love you. And so, right? And so diabetes matters because you might die from it, but now you've got all of these people that love you left behind. So why wouldn't you want to live the best quality life that you possibly can, not only for yourself, but for all the people you love?
Yeah,
And
there
so,
are two types
yeah,
of people. The one who actually want to exercise, want to eat right, live a quality life, and do not want to be burden on their loved ones. And they're the other kind who do not do this, but they say that, but there's only one life. Let's eat whatever we want, and then everybody's going to die. But they don't understand the quality of life part, where
yeah,
if you get sick, then
yeah,
everything just goes.
yeah. And I
And
think happy medium is in between.
yes,
It's
thank you.
always the middle path.
True. Okay, we'll just have rapid fire and then we'll end this. Thank you so much for your time. I know you are like very, very busy on your schedule and you were here for only a few days with your parents. Keep coming, keep seeing them, and then amazing. So just rapid fire, quick thought. Do not think, just give me a
Yeah,
one-word answer. Who in your family has been your biggest supporter?
Gorish,
Your brother.
my brother. Yeah.
What's the best lesson your parents have taught you?
There's always tomorrow.
Absolutely. How has your brother influenced your journey?
In every possible way.
What?
Um, in every way, like truly in every way.
He'll be
He's
really proud of his sister when he actually watches this. So, what qualities do you actually value most in your partner?
uh so much. This is a hard question again. Um, I value everything about him. He is a tremendous human being. He is, he's an extraordinary person. He makes me a better person because of how amazing of a person he is. Like he is a good, he's a good person inside and out.
This
Um,
is that's it. We'll just keep it as inside out. That's it. That's good. One letter, like one sentence answer. So, would you ever want to climb a high peak with your partner? Have you already done it?
yes and yes.
Okay, good. So, how do you see your personal life evolving alongside your medical career? How do you see it?
Yeah, I don't think the two are exclusive. I sort of like you can't put your personal life on hold. I want to have kids. I want to have three kids. And they'll happen. I think they'll happen as medical life happens.
Yeah, that's what I think you have to tell other kids, that you cannot hold your career onto once you settle in life, once you have this kind of bank balance in your account, then I will marry, then I will have kids. That's not going to happen because life doesn't happen according to what you're
Exactly.
actually thinking or your bank balance. So, what is your dream job after finishing med school?
So I mean, I'm done with medical school, and so I'm in my urology residency. So the dream job is a urologist. I think I'm still figuring out what sort of urologist. So right now, I want to focus on becoming a good urologist.
So, would you ever consider working in a remote or high altitude location as a doctor?
I think so. I think their remote is a little bit harder just because I want an Indian community, but I think global health will be a part of my future career, and wherever global health takes me.
Absolutely, that's good. And what's like one non-career goal you want to accomplish in the next 10 years? The hike,
Um,
the 26 is
yes.
done. You're going to the 50. I'll be here cheering you from here when you're actually going to climb Mount McKinley. And
Hmm.
also the one in Washington, the
Great.
Rainier, we'll be here. And so, what is something different than that which you want to accomplish in the next 10 years?
I think it's more of a personal goal where I want to, in the next 10 years, I see myself married with at least one, maybe two, maybe three kids. Um, and so I don't want to be too old before I start having my kids, right? I want to still be able to run around with them when they're in their 20s.
Oh, this is
Um,
one career goal. Okay.
yeah. And so my non-career, non-hobby goal is I want to establish and like create my family.
So in 10, 15 years, if you write a book
Yeah.
on about yourself, what
Yeah.
would the title be?
I don't know.
That would
I,
be your title.
I think that would be the title, right? I think that's the best answer to anything in life. And it's okay to say I don't know. I think I've
I
said
don't
I
know,
don't know a lot.
I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. Still figuring, still downloading.
Yeah, go figure. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was great. Thank you so much for all this insight. So have you learned something about yourself with by having this conversation? Did you learn something new about yourself? Sometimes we need to say it to know what we're thinking inside.
Yeah, I think it was just a lot of things that may have like passed my head, just random thoughts. I think being able to articulate them um sort of gives more clarity. So definitely.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we can